missed the story, Kieran again for another Spearhead tutorial. This time we're going to be doing a hardcore tutorial. It's going to be a hardcore merch design with loads of 3D typography, some sick looking bitmap and texture effects, and loads of other trimmings on top. But before we get to that, I did say once I got to 500 subs, I'll dish out another load of Spearhead sticker packs. So I'm a man of my word, I'm gonna do it. So the first 10 people to comment saying they want some of them stickers on this video, I'm gonna post them out to you. I'll get in touch and get your address. But yeah, thanks a million. Didn't think I'd get to 500 so quick. Had to re-edit the start of this video and reschedule it for going up. But yeah, happy days, over the moon. Let's do it.
Oi oi, what's the crack? So for today's tutorial I'm going to run through putting together a hardcore style merch design. Now this is going to be kind of hardcore, kind of metalcore, very contemporary looking with a lot of bit mapping, a lot of texture and also some 3D typography because we all know that is in right now. So yeah, this is going to be a quick one. Hopefully it's going to be simple. I'm going to speed up a lot of the footage but then slow down for the 3D parts because they can be kind of tricky if it's your first time doing it, so I'll go over that nice and clearly. And yeah, for this one I'm kind of trying to work on my scripts here. Usually I just like run through things with a couple of takes and kind of chop and change going back, but I've got my little book here today and I'm going to try really hit on the must-dos in this tutorial. So if you have any input on ways I can improve my my tutorials, please just give me a shout down in the comments below. You know I'll get back to you. So nice one, let's do it. Right, so to start we're going to make a new artboard. It's going to be 4000 pixels by 4000 pixels at 300 dpi. We want it to be quite big for the bit mapping when we get to it. So in this case I'm using some PNGs of a globe and some barbed wire. Now I'm duplicating my barbed wire layer and I'm putting one on top of the globe and one below the globe. And then I'm using my polygonal lasso tool and I'm just chopping bits of the wire away because it looks a bit busy. So as you can see, I'm cutting bits away but leaving other bits, and this is in an attempt to make it look like the barbed wire is wrapping around the globe. You'll see it a bit more clearly as I go through with it, but it gives a pretty cool little effect here. Now some people have been asking me like how long do these how long is the footage, if you know what I mean, like before I speed it up. Now it can be anything from like 2 hours to 5 or 6 hours, and most of the time I don't do them all in one go. You know, I'll like do 2 or 3 hours work and I'll sit down and I'll come back to it with a fresh set of eyes. And also it depends on whether it's like a layout design or just like a simple illustration or logo. Like as you can imagine, layout work is far more time intensive, which in turn gives it a bigger price tag. But yeah, as you can see, just chopping away. I'm not being too kind of strict here, but once I was happy with how it looked, I just saved that and I saved it as Photoshop file, PSD. Now I've gone to my barbed wire and I'm kind of just like giving it a stroke and like feathering in bits and kind of making it look, give it that three-dimensional kind of feeling, you know what I mean? Like nice and bold and really like kind of like squishing the earth in. And I've put both the earth and the barbed wire into black and white and started playing with my levels and my contrast just to give it like a really kind of harsh look, because remember this is like going to be hardcore merch, which is like really kind of in your face. Now after I finish that, I'm just going to save that. I'm going to make a new artboard the same size and put earth 3 times. This is because I want to like wrap this around a 3D object. So I will include one of my new fonts. It's a hardcore font called The Storm, named after There Will Be Quiet. You might be familiar with the Judge record. And I'll put that in the assets folder down the bottom. So give now a like and subscribe for more free assets. Now with my new text artboard open with just earth, triple space, because I want this to like wrap around the globe, if you get me. Then I'm going to go into 3D, into mesh from layer, into sphere. And then once we're in the 3D workspace, I'm going to go into sphere material. I'm going to set the glow to about 13%, just subtly. And then I'm going to load in my text file. And as you can see, that just wraps it around that sphere really nicely and gives it a good shadow drop below it. So I'm going to tilt it on the y-axis. So on the y-axis we can see it kind of like dipping down. It gives it like a nice sense of depth. and we're going to place this below our globe, and it's going to give a really cool little effect here that you'll see now. So I'm going to save that as text 3D and just save it as a PNG. Now we'll change our workspace back to essentials, which is just kind of the go-to, which is handy, and go back into our illustration PSD, and we're going to open the 3D text PNG. And already, like, this is looking cool. Look, I just placed it below the globe layer there, and it kind of gives it like a cool little effect that the globe has been like held up like a pedestal by the text. And Euro style is like real nice because it's especially extended bold. It's like super wide. And my the Storm font, which is in the folder down below, that's also the same. It's a super wide font. Now I'm just using like Old English here, and I decided I'd make the band name for this just be Decrepit, and Decrepit Earth. Like, so I've just like actually rasterized that layer, copied and pasted my T, flipped it sideways, got rid of the D, and then used my polygonal lasso tool to chop a bit off. Now I'm just playing with my warp again, and my perspective, you know, under arc warp and perspective, just to give it that like nice kind of arching hardcore feel. So I'm going to save that on a new artboard. Now again, we're going to go into 3D, but this time we're going to create a 3D extrusion layer. And this means we're going to be able to make these like rasterized letters 3D themselves. As you can see, you can change like your depth and how far you want the background to be, but another nice way to do it is, again, just tilt up the y-axis, and that'll give you like a below perspective looking at it. So I'm going to go into cap, and then I'm going to increase the strength of the cap to about like 30-40%. It kind of depends how much you want this to look. Like, it's going to kind of give you a similar effect as like bevel and emboss, you know, in your layers styles. But in this way, you can like play with your lighting and stuff much easier, because it is like creating a 3D object for you, and you get a lot more control out of that. So once you're kind of happy with this, like, this is all like, you're going to be doing this yourself with your own eye, you know. Once you like how it looks, you can literally just like right click on your layer and rasterize it, and copy and paste it into your artboard where you have your artwork. So now back in our artwork layer, like, I'm just kind of playing around with like inverting things and kind of like really just like, I'm getting loose here, you know, like trying to just see what feels right to me. Again, this is going to be all up to you. Like, I can play with my threshold a bit and kind of see how it'll look bitmapped before I actually commit to it, and then just play with your levels, because I wanted to like really bring out the shadowy kind of details in it. So you can do that with your levels, or even your brightness and contrast, you know, like once you've rasterized it, you can really kind of go wild. Just make sure you constantly save, like, because sometimes like you'll, especially when you like rasterize things as you go, you can really shoot yourself in the foot, like when you're doing destructive edits. Like, it's a bad habit that I kind of know that I have, but like, I don't really do anything to change it, just because my workflow is quite messy and fast. It's kind of like the inside of my brain, you know what I mean? It's like a bomb hit, it's just so messy. Here I'm just kind of seeing like whether it'll look like good on a white background or good on a black background, and I kind of decided to start texturing it with the on the white background. So again, I'm using my spearhead grid texture, which I'm going to throw into that L folder, so go click it now, download that stuff. And I'm again just messing around with black and white textures, then clicking my artwork layer, going into refine edge, opening it up a bit, and then selecting inverse and deleting everything that's not over the artwork. You can kind of play around with your brush here and kind of like clean it up a bit as you go as well. I also like give it a little bit of a ripple, just to give it that kind of really like gritty hardcore kind of feel. You know, you want this to look quite hard and quite nasty, and you can kind of like really achieve that kind of imperfection by giving things ripple, and you'll see what happens when we bitmap this now. It's going to really look like it was printed in the 90s. So now I'm happy with how my artwork looks, and I'm going to go into mode. I'm going to grayscale the layer, and then I'm going to go into bitmap, and I'm going to select about 170 dpi. What bitmapping does is like, it essentially reduces the image to like the lowest possible amount of information for the computer. Like, each pixel is a bit, you know what I mean? So it is all going to be black, and it's going to be white. Like, no, there's no in between, there's no gradients here, nothing. So what you're gonna then have to do is make a new artboard, which is gonna be your 4000 by 4000 at 300 dpi in RGB, and copy and paste your bitmap layer into that layer, and then you're just gonna like blow it up. Because you can't really, in a bitmap layer, it's gonna be a grayscale layer, and you're not really gonna be able to like edit it too much. So a nice little trick is just to copy and paste it back into an RGB layer, and then you're gonna be able to just play around again, unrestricted really. So now that I'm happy with my kind of bitmapped artwork, there's not really much else like to do here. So all I did was like I decided to bring it back into a black artboard, you know what I mean, black background, and I just like throw like a little bit of white under the globe and give it like a little white stroke, because as I said, we want this to look quite like 90s kind of hardcore, because that's real in right now, and the bitmapping really does that, along with like a white stroke on it. And everything I'm really doing here now is just kind of farting around and playing. Like again, this is all going to be like, you'll do it by your eye, you know, you'll know what works best for whatever project you're working on at the time. And I just felt like this was the way to go for this thing, you know. That doesn't mean it's right. I'm not exactly like, you know, an authority on this. This is just like a trick that I kind of figured out over the years. So yeah, again, just like playing around with my different bits of text, like bringing them up, bringing them down, bringing them up in contrast, you know, then just bringing in my my photocopy texture, which I'm just going to throw over the top and use screen and multiply in different layers, just to kind of give it a little bit more of that like 90s sort of feel. You won't really put these textures on it when you're prepping your print file for a t-shirt, like, but if you want to kind of post it on your social media, it's always nice to give it like a nice textured background. So yeah, it's pretty much done now, and I'm happy with it. The client is happy with it, so we're laughing, like, you know what I mean. All you really want to do then is like, you can go into select and select color, select all your white, and save that just onto like a really big like PNG. Because if you're printing this, like if you're screen printing this, the screen printer is going to want to like expose like a negative onto the screen in order to print. And if it's DTG, direct to garment, they're going to want like a transparent background. So it's kind of like good to give them just the white on a transparent layer, and then bam, you're laughing. Right, so that's done and dusted. Like, that turned out absolutely whopper, and like, to be honest, I wasn't really sure what I was going for in the first place, and when I was cooking up that design, like, it just kind of flowed. I love bitmapping things, and I love that 3D type, and actually, since I made that and recorded that process, a local Dublin band has since bought that artwork, and they're over the moon with it, man. Like, that aesthetic just like works so good for that like hardcore metalcore kind of feel. Again, if you have any ideas for things going forward, like, just shoot down in the comments and let me know. I'm all ears, as I said. I'd be happy to kind of work on new stuff. If you have any further questions about anything that I covered in this, just like give me a shout, as I said. And don't forget that there's the free assets folder down in the bottom. I've got some new fonts and some new textures and stuff on the way. I still need to finish the old assets tutorial. But yeah, I'm really enjoying making these, and hopefully I'm helping a few people out there. I've gotten some good feedback on them so far. So yeah, I'm happy out. If you're happy out, I'm gonna make some more. Peace out.